Hi, this is Andre, and thanks for checking out Synthosophy. Synthosophy is scientifically integrating the wisdoms of history, based on fact and truth, into our present culture. Let's take a look today at Chapter 17, Modern Skinwalkers. Or more specifically, Modern Skinwalkers and Societal Cancer. Modern skinwalkers are individuals and corporations that harm or kill thousands, if not millions of people, but make millions, if not billions of dollars for themselves doing it. Cancer cells are normal cells within the human body that suddenly start to replicate and grow uncontrollably. They become malignant and can seriously harm the individual, but with proper treatment can sometimes be kept in check. However, if left untreated, and many times even with treatment, cancer can overcome and kill the host. So let's consider modern skinwalkers as a form of cancer. The following will be quotes from the book Merchants of Doubt. Chapter 1, Doubt is Our Product, by Naomi Oreskes and Eric M. Conway, regarding cigarette smoking and the tobacco industry. The number of conclusions presented at the end. Quote, December 15, 1953 was a fateful day. A few months earlier, researchers at the Sloan Kettering Institute in New York City had demonstrated that cigarette tar painted on the skin of mice caused fatal cancers. This work had attracted an enormous amount of press attention. The New York Times and Life magazine had both covered it, and Reader's Digest, the most widely read publication in the world, ran a piece entitled Cancer by the Carton. Perhaps the journalists and editors were impressed by the scientific paper's dramatic concluding sentences. Such studies, in view of the corollary clinical data relating smoking to various types of cancer, appear urgent. They may not only result in furthering knowledge of carcinogens, but in promoting some practical aspects of cancer prevention. With the mounting evidence, the tobacco industry was thrown into a panic, so industry executives made a fateful decision, one that would later become the basis on which a federal judge would find the industry guilty of conspiracy to commit fraud, a massive and ongoing fraud to deceive the American public about the health effects of smoking. The decision was to hire a public relations firm to challenge the scientific evidence that smoking could kill you. On that December morning, December 15, 1953, the presidents of four of America's largest tobacco companies, American Tobacco, Benson & Hedges, Philip Morris, and U.S. Tobacco, met at the venerable Plaza Hotel in New York City, the French Renaissance chateau-style building, in which unaccompanied ladies were not permitted in its famous Oak Room bar. It was the fitting place for a task at hand, the protection of one of America's oldest and most powerful industries. The man they had come to meet was equally powerful, John Hill, founder and CEO of one of America's largest and most effective public relations firms, Hill and Knowlton. The four presidents, as well as the CEOs of R.J. Reynolds and Brown and Williamson, had agreed to cooperate on a public relations program to defend their product. They would work together to convince the public that there was no sound scientific basis for the charges, and that the recent reports were simply sensational accusations made by publicity-seeking scientists hoping to attract more funds for their research. They would not sit idly by while their product was vilified. Instead, they would create a tobacco industry committee for public information to supply a positive and entirely pro-cigarette message to counter the anti-cigarette scientific one. As the U.S. Department of Justice would later put it, they decided to deceive the American public about the health effects of smoking. 50 years and millions of smoking-caused deaths later, the tobacco industry was found guilty in the RICO statute, in part because what the Hill and Knowlton documents showed, that the tobacco industry knew the dangers of smoking as early as 1951 and conspired to suppress this knowledge. They conspired to fight the facts and to merchandise doubt. But it took a long time for those facts to emerge and the doubt to be dispelled. For many years, the American public did continue to think that there was reasonable doubt about the harms of smoking, and some still do. While hazard labels were strengthened, it was not until the 1990s that the industry began to lose cases in court. And although FDA sought to regulate tobacco as an addictive drug in the early 1990s, it was not until 2009 that the U.S. Congress finally gave them the authority to do so. On August 17, 2006, Judge Kessler issued an opinion holding the tobacco companies liable for violating RICO by fraudulently covering up health risks associated with smoking and for marketing their products to children. Quote, as set forth in these final proposed findings of fact, substantial evidence establishes that defendants have engaged in and executed and continue to engage in and execute a massive 50-year scheme to defraud the public, including consumers of cigarettes, in violation of RICO. The tobacco industry has behaved in the last 50 years as described earlier and has been concluded in the Tobacco Master Settlement Agreement of 1998, the RICO verdict of 2006, and as stated above by the tobacco industry itself, as a very malignant cancer that has killed millions and continues to kill hundreds of thousands of people in the U.S. and 5 million worldwide every year. The tobacco industry is an example of a malignant, cancerous skinwalker, knowingly killing their own, the only difference being as they do such, their deceit makes them billions of dollars. So metaphorically, as we just discussed, fraud in the unemployment benefits, welfare, Medicare, and Medicaid, and in the defense, financial, and pharmaceutical industries started in their various subgroups, the cells, with a particular industry in Oregon, and then metastasized to affect the whole country, the host. Metaphorically, as we just discussed, fraud started within the tobacco companies, the cells, within the tobacco industry in Oregon, that has metastasized now, affecting people in all countries around the world, the host. These cancers are or have been treated and contained for the most part, although at tremendous cost. But there may be another form of cancer that started as particular companies, the cells, within a particular industry in Oregon, that has metastasized now, involving all nations, and is affecting the entire Earth, the host. Read the next chapter on climate change.